Okay, Apple time says 3:30. Jewel, you want to start us off?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, board, staff, and members of the public. After my statement, the chairman will open this meeting and explain the rules for this electronic meeting. Please keep your microphone on mute when you are not speaking. The technical support team may proactively mute participants if the microphone is picking up background noise. Board members should check to make sure the microphone is not muted before speaking. You may text me at 540-336-3948 at any time during the meeting if you need technical support, and an IT tech will call your cell phone to assist. I now turn the meeting over to Board Chairman Kobliss.
Thanks, Jewel. Now the legal counsel, Jonathan Rack, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope this is the last time that I get to read this statement. In accordance with the governor's state of emergency declaration and executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors Continuity Ordinance and General Assembly 2020 Budget Amendments 28 and 137, Loudoun Water will meet today in an electronic meeting. In compliance with these special procedures, only action items necessary to continue operations of Loudoun Water and the discharge of its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities will be discussed during today's meeting. Reports and other meeting information are available on board docs. Public notice and meeting access information was provided on the Loudoun Water website. This meeting will be recorded, and a recording of the meeting will be available at the Loudoun Water website. Turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Jonathan. During presentation, staff will pause for questions and discussion. There will be an opportunity for discussion after each presentation, and we will also monitor and recognize the hand raise feature. For each action item, a roll call voice vote will be taken by the board secretary. Opportunity for public comment was provided within the meeting notice. Any written comments were provided to the board secretary and will be read during the public speaker's agenda item. I will now open the meeting, and if Jewel, if you could take roll call.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Allen?
Here.
Mr. Bonfils?
Present.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mr. Kobliss?
Here.
Mr. Moody?
Here.
And Ms. Ursakar? Mr. Sultan?
Here.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Ursakar is not present at this time.
Okay, thanks. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from June?
So moved. This is Marty.
And a second?
Second, this is Sean.
Okay, Sean, I assume there's no discussion. Go ahead and roll call.
Mr. Bonfils? Mr. Bonfils? I believe we lost his connection. Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr.
Yeah.
Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Ursakar? Mr. Sultan?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
And Mr. Kobliss?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Now I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes from our workshop on Broad Run water reclamation.
This is Keith, so moved.
Jim Bonfils, second.
Okay, any discussion? Jewel?
Mr. Bonfils?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
I'll abstain.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Ursakar? Mr. Sultan?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
And Mr. Kobliss?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, now I'll jump into board comments. I'll go ahead and start. There will not be an August meeting coming up, August board meeting, and therefore will not be any July committee meetings at the end of July. I know that Jonathan's going to go in detail on what is coming up with as far as our electronic electronically accepted board meetings. But basically, September's meeting still can be all electronic because this doesn't start until the continuity of government ordinance doesn't start till September 16th. So technically, we could still wire in electronically in September, but we will have a open meeting for those that would like to attend. And I don't believe we need a quorum if it's not required yet. Is that correct, Jonathan?
I think we probably could meet without a quorum physically present at the board meeting room, but I would certainly encourage the board to do so if you are able.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I plan on being there. Let's see. I also want to thank Kendra and Sarah, Darren, and Alton for the excellent Broad Run Reclamation Facility Expansion Workshop. Very informative. I mean, it was well presented, and I thought the information that was given was able so that even people without an engineering background could easily understand what was going on. And then the same for Pam and Sue for their water quality presentation. Again, very informative and well presented. And I hope everybody has a cool rest of the summer. I hope that's it to that heat wave. Man, that was too much. Woo! And we have a hurricane this afternoon. I don't even see a breeze yet, but the way the media says it, who knows what's going to happen. But anyway, let's see. Mr. Byers, why don't you go next?
No comment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Moody.
Yeah, no comment, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Allen.
Well, we're getting a storm here right now, so they're half correct, Mr. Koblis.
Oh.
Yeah, I hope everyone had a great 4th. It felt good to be out and be kind of normal again. It's like the first time I've seen crowds and throngs of people, so it's kind of interesting to see. I hope everyone has a great rest of the summer since we don't have another board meeting, and any trips that you have planned, obviously stay safe and enjoy the summer because it goes by fast. That's all I have.
Okay, Sean. Oh, he's disappeared from the screen, so he may not be there. He's an invisible man. Oh, here he is. He's back.
We got a big storm coming through here, so I just kind of checked to make sure. We lost about 10 trees last week during the storm, and
wow.
nearly missed the house. They just several of them literally exploded. We got some of those microbursts that came down and just blew it all apart. So I'm just kind of cautiously. The lights have been flickering off and on, so that's why I kind of disappeared for a moment. Looks like Armageddon out there. But anyway, I also want to echo Mark's comments on the Broad Run project and the water resources. The Broad Run project and the other information that we received. That was very well done. Very helpful, as Mark said. I think for a non-engineer like me, I really got a grasp finally of understanding the complexities that go into that and the costs and so forth. So thank you all for that. I know that was a lot of effort, and I appreciate you doing that. I did want to mention, I know we're going to be talking about the Water Resources Committee later, and I want to thank Carla for her leadership in suggesting that committee a while back. I think it's been very useful. I know a number of members have been attending the meetings when we talk about the park, and I think that was a great place to put that effort in the Water Resources Committee, and appreciate Jim's leadership on that. I think that's working really well. I'm eager to hear an update from Alton a little bit later. So thank you, Mark.
Brent, go ahead.
Yes, happy Independence Day to everyone, and also enjoyed the Water Resource Committee and appreciated all the effort that staff put into making that a great presentation. I found it really helpful, and I know a lot of our colleagues did as well. So thank you for that. That's all I have.
Marty?
The only thing I have is to just second your comments, Mark, about the presentations. They were absolutely outstanding.
Mr. Bonfels.
Yeah, I'd like to reflect comment. It was great to be out and about. And then on the two presentations that we had, to commend staff on gathering all that information and delivering it in a very succinct manner. I really appreciate it. That's all for today. Thank you.
And I don't know if Angeline's here yet. If she is. Okay, I believe go ahead.
I do not see her on the list, sir.
Okay, I think
She's not appearing in the attendance.
I don't have the pictures in a row, so I think I got all the board members. Did I miss anybody? If I did, I apologize. I think I got everybody. Okay, great. Also, unless somebody has heartburn, I've decided to keep the committees the way they are. I talked to the leaders of the three committees, and they have agreed to remain as chairman of those three committees. Carla, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Just a couple things to report on. On June 28th, we met with all three rating agencies in preparation for our 2021 bond issue that is on your consent agenda for today. We do expect to receive all of our reports back from the three agencies by July 16th. But hot off the press, just about an hour or so ago, we did get our report from Fitch, who reaffirmed our AAA rating. So we're pretty pleased about that. We opened our lobby back up to the public on Tuesday. We lifted our mask mandate and social distancing requirements for all of our vaccinated employees. And those that are currently working remotely will start their return to the office right after Labor Day. The Milestone Reservoir project has reached a significant milestone in the procurement of the Construction Manager at Risk, or CMAR. The evaluation team has selected 2 contractors to enter into negotiations with the intention of making a final selection in September. Staff will work this summer on negotiating the scope and fees for the next phase of services for the CMAR, our professional advisor, and our design engineer. So that project is continuing to move forward. I am happy to report that the National Association of Clean Water Agencies recently awarded our Broad Run Water Reclamation Facility the 2020 Peak Performance Gold Award, which is awarded to facilities with no permit violations for an entire calendar year. And this award really speaks volumes to the incredible efforts of the team here at Loudon Water that supports our Broad Run facility in the context of very stringent permit limits that you heard about at the workshop and ongoing expansion construction within the plant. On Wednesday, June 30, we celebrated Water and Wastewater Professionals Appreciation Day with a drive-through lunch for our essential workers. As we previously mentioned, Water and Wastewater Professionals Appreciation Day is a time to build appreciation for clean water and the work that we do to help protect the health and safety of our customers and the environment. A few statistics for you. We have approved about 630 applications for the utility assistance funding and have applied more than $340,000 to outstanding balances. We currently have 1,948 payment plans in place. And through June, we had 1,354 equivalent residential connections. And if you remember, our projection through June was 1,100. So we are a bit ahead of pace of where we thought we would be. And so on behalf of all staff at Loudon Water, we hope you enjoy your summer recess, and we look forward to seeing you the last week of August for our committee meetings. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Carla. Jewel, are there anybody to talk from the public?
No, sir. No public comments. Thank you.
Okay, great. I need to get a motion to adopt the agenda then.
So moved from Marty.
Second.
Anybody? Okay, second by Bill. Is there any discussion about that? All right, Jewel, go ahead and roll call.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar, Ms. Sursakar. I'm sorry, bear with me. I thought I saw Ms. Sursakar. Ms. Sursakar, are you muted? All right, I see that she's on the call, but I can't hear her. Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
and Mr. Koblis.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, the committees, Marty, if you could go first to talk about what happened in the CIP.
Okay, both items from the CIP committee meeting are on consent agenda. First one is approval of design task order for Selma Estates water treatment plant upgrades. The Selma Estates water treatment plant distributes, as you know, potable water to both Raspberry Falls and Selma Estates communities. The water usage in the two communities varies widely, resulting in a pump system that is oversized when operating in low flow condition. The results is excessive pump cycling, premature equipment wear, reduced equipment service life, and overall inefficient pump operations. Furthermore, the pump control panel is obsolete and also in need of replacement. A professional services task order is required to address these issues, and the scope will include a hydraulic evaluation of the current usage conditions, determination of the optimal solution and equipment for handling low flows, preparing drawings and specifications, developing maintenance of plant operations plans, control panel replacement, and permitting and bid phase services. Staff has selected Carollo, I'm not sure if that's the pronunciation, but Carollo to perform the work. Carollo was selected due to their experience working on water treatment plant systems and pump stations, and their technical lead on the project has past design experience at the Selma water treatment plant. Staff negotiated the scope, schedule, and fee for these services with Carollo and recommends approval of a task order in the amount of $123,600. The CIP committee recommended approval of a design task for that amount for an estimated $123,600 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $130,000. The CIP committee forwarded this item to this meeting to be included on the board consent agenda. The second item was award of a construction contract for Sterling valve replacement phase 3. During the course of performing maintenance and repairs in the Sterling area, staff has determined that many of the existing valves no longer fully function and are in need of replacement. The central area system in Sterling was constructed in the 1960s and 1970s. This contract, which is the third in the valve replacement program in the Sterling area, is necessary for continued reliable operation and maintenance in the area and allow for the eventual replacement of adjacent water lines. Staff developed the bidding documents internally and estimated the value of the work to be $425,000. The project was advertised and a low bid was received from Madigan Construction. Staff has worked with Madigan before on many projects, determined they're a responsible bidder, and determined their bid to be responsive. The CIP committee recommended award of the construction contract for this project for $411,040 with an approximate 10% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for an authorized budget of $452,000. The CIP committee forwarded this item to today's meeting to be included on the board consent agenda. We also had a presentation on the capital spending monthly report, and the results from that report are excellent. And that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Marty. Terry, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a very long but very productive Finance Committee meeting. The first item that we discussed was the post-65 Medigap plan. Loudon Water does not currently have a retiree health plan for retired employees over the age of 65. And in 2019, Loudon Water did a comparative study of employee benefits to other public sector employers. And while our benefits are relatively comparable, our post-65 health insurance coverage is not, because we don't have any. And Loudon Water currently contracts with Cigna to provide health insurance benefits to its current employees and retirees that are less than 65 years of age. And Loudon Water received a proposal from Cigna to provide the Medigap insurance coverage. Staff is recommending that Loudon Water establish a post-65 Medigap insurance plan starting in the first quarter of 2022. Loudon Water contracted with Boomershine Consulting, who also created the County of Loudon's post-65 plan. So they're modeling it after that. And the details of that plan are in everybody's board packet. Currently, the cost associated with our pre-65 plan is $439,500 a year. And with the addition of the proposed post-65 benefit plan, that annual expense would rise to $990,000 a year. So that's an increase of $550,000 a year. We spent the lion's share of our meeting discussing this issue. There was a lengthy presentation. It was very detailed. There were lots of questions. At the end of the meeting, we did ask to see a copy of the actuarial assumptions that went into the plan, and those were provided last week and are included in today's board packet. So there's a lot of material under this issue. So this is a big step for Loudon Water, and it expresses a commitment to its employees. It's not cheap, adding about 1.7% to annual personal expenses. However, staff and the Finance Committee feel it's overdue and aligns with our strategic plan of attracting and retaining excellent talent. This is an action item today, and I want it to stay there because I want other board members who might have some questions about the plan to have the opportunity to it. I know Tom Shunta is going to be doing a kind of a pared down version of what we saw in the Finance Committee meeting, and David Boomershine from Boomershine Consulting is also on the call to answer any questions. The next item, what is a consent item today, and it's a resolution to defease Series 2013 revenue bonds. These bonds are currently not callable, but through the process of defeasement, they can be removed from our balance sheet and replaced with lower coupon bonds. This will effectively save us $14 million in savings. So this is a substantial step of taking advantage of lower rates. The Finance Committee recommends adoption of this resolution to defease these bonds. The final resolution was to issue $95.5 million of Series 2021 revenue bonds. They're both revenue and refunding bonds. The proceeds of this issuance will be used to retire approximately $27 million of Series 2020 bonds that have coupons ranging from 2.25% to 5%. This will save us an additional $4 million. So of that $95 million that we're going to be issuing, 27 is going to retire these bonds, and 65 million of the issuance will effectively replace the money that we're going to have to put in escrow to defease the bonds. So if you take the 14 million we're going to save from the defeasement and the 4 million from the retiring of the 2020 bonds, that's $18 million in savings. So this is really, really good news, and I'm glad that we're taking advantage of this lower rate environment to save this money. And in fact, we're probably saving any more money now because bonds yields have dropped substantially this week. Lastly, we had the financial summary. Revenues are slightly down. Non-operating revenues are slightly up for May. Expenses are slightly down. And as Carla mentioned, we have 1,146 CRCs through May, which is slightly above our forecast. Total cash equivalents of $223 million with an average yield of 0.56%. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Terry. Jim, for the Water Resources Committee meeting? You're on mute.
I believe I'm unmuted now.
Yes, you are.
All right, so we had really great attendance. All the committee members attended our meeting, which started on time. And in additional attendance, Mr. Koblis, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Moody, and Mr. Sistercar. So we had great attendance. It was a really good meeting in terms of the interaction and the discussion. The presentation, which is available still online, which was done by Ms. Kennel and Crosby, was very good. Mark Peterson gave a brief overview, and then we went into and talked a lot about the umbrella of the different regulations, both federal, state, and local, the environment that we live in, and how we can move forward. Another big part of it was talking about the what are affectionately known as the forever chemicals, PFAS chemicals, non-water soluble compounds. We talked and how they can be mitigated using different techniques, including activated charcoal. Activated carbon charcoal. So that's what we discussed at the meeting. We also talked a little bit about involvement in the water quality report and the federal regulations that are required there. This meeting created a lot of discussion. It lasted about an hour and about 75 minutes, and it was really good interaction. We'll have another meeting in September. I haven't talked about the agenda yet, but we'll be talking about chemicals probably at every quarterly meeting and get updates, because this is such a fast-moving area of both regulation as well as scientific interest. So that's all I have. Are there any other questions?
Okay, thanks, Jim. I'd like to get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda. This is Jim.
This is Sean. I'll second.
Seconded by Marty.
Any more discussion? Okay, go ahead, Jewel.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sirsakar,
Yes.
Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
and Mr. Koblis.
Yes, thanks, Jewel.
Thank you, sir.
Now we'll get into the action agenda portion of our meeting with a presentation on the post-95 Medigap plan by Tom Junta.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Happy to be with you today. My name is Tom Chunt. I'm the Director of General Services and oversee human resources here at Loudon Water. Just wanted to say that I've got Mr. Dave Boomershine here with us as well, and Dave was instrumental in, as Mr. Allen had mentioned, in setting up the counties or tweaking their plan back in 2022 when they totally revamped their plan. So he is here to hopefully help me out for any actuarial questions, and certainly I've got Brian and Carl in the bullpen as well regarding the Opeb questions if there are anything along those lines. As far as there we go. Just as Mr. Allen had mentioned, as far as the background, we've, we did a comparison back in 2019, which showed that this was a glaring issue within our benefits as opposed to our comparator jurisdictions and our fellow county folks. We've tweaked this many times over the last probably 3 or 4 months. This was something that we've actually started back in 2019. However, it was incredibly difficult to find somebody to provide a rate to us based on the small number of employees that we would have in this plan. So what we have in front of you today, we feel like is fair and equitable to staff, as well as still being fiscally responsible. So our existing OPEB benefits, health insurance pre-65, we do provide coverage, as you mentioned, all the way up to age of 65. After they become Medicare eligible, unfortunately, they are no longer eligible under our current plan. Under the eligible retiree participants, the premium contributions you see there, and certainly it's graduated based on longevity, as it is with many other plans outside of Loud and Water as well. The average annual cost for the premiums currently, we have 17 retirees under this plan, is about $146,000. But with that, we also have to attribute money for future benefits. And that trust, we've placed about $493,700 for a grand total of $439,500. So what is the Opeb Trust? It's under the Government Accounting Standards Board, stated in number 75, enhanced reporting evaluation of Opeb benefits. Employers are required to measure, report current actuarial liability of projected benefits payments to active employees and inactive retirees to determine the total Opeb liability, which is currently at $3.435 million based on 2020 evaluation by Mr. Boomershine and his consulting group. It does require actual valuation every 2 years, and the assumptions evaluation are required to be made in conformity with actual standards of practice issued by the Actuarial Standards Board. Loud and Water does participate in the Virginia Pooled Opeb Trust Fund, which is established as an investment vehicle for participating employees to accumulate assets to funds Opeb. We are required to record the balance sheet, the unfunded liability. We do make annual contributions based on actual valuation, fund liability over time to ensure adequate funding for future benefits. And the enhancing our OPEB, adding 65 benefits to be discussed on the next slide, will increase the unfunded liability and increase the annual payment made to the trust fund to reduce the liability. And one thing we want to be sure they understand here is the defined benefit portion of the plan is the only thing that affects the unfunded liability, not the folks that will go into the defined contribution plan. So the proposed change that we have before you today is that we're requesting the change to the pre-65 plan to add a post-65 health insurance benefit. The defined benefit for those close to retirement extension of the existing plan past age 65. The defined contribution for others will be a $3,000 contribution to a retiree health savings plan, which will be managed by ICMARC. And no contributions of the first 5 years of employment. Employee vested after 15 years and forfeited balances will offset future Loud and Water contributions. So I do say, this is a glaring difference that we have from the county. The county does start contributions after they've been employed for a year. We've chosen to make that 5 years to, again, recognize the value of keeping employees, and as well as certainly realizing they should be vested after 15 years so that when they get closer to retirement, they'll have a very similar nest egg to those in the defined benefit plan. This does closely align with plans offered by Loudoun County government in the schools, as well as other surrounding jurisdictions. The enhanced benefit will keep Loud and Water's total benefits package competitive, which will help maintain a strong workforce and support employee retention. And as Mr. Allen mentioned earlier, this is directly related to the strategic plan to attract and retain talent. We did contract, as mentioned, with Boomershine Consulting to develop a plan and prepare actual valuation to understand the cost implications of enhancing the existing benefits. So the total cost of enhanced benefits, as we mentioned earlier, the cost of the current plan is $439,500. The average annual cost of the enhanced benefit plan is $990,000, with a net annual cost increase of $550,500. And as mentioned again in Mr. Allen's preview, it is 1.6 increase to the personnel budget and a 0.7 increase to the total operating budget. The increase of about 2.5 to 4.1 million to the OPEB unfunded liability is a one-time book entry into the increased unfunded liability balance sheet. The expense, again, with the expectation we'll go ahead and fund this in 2022, that would be incorporated in the operating budget. And the actual entry amount to be determined through biennial actuary evaluation upon implementation of the plan. So on the screen, you see the total cost of enhanced benefits. So really just outlining exactly what we had previously. Basically just going down the current pre-65 plan, you see the total contribution of $439,500. The proposed post-65 with benefits total cost $990,000 with a net increase of $550,000. So in summary, the cost for enhanced benefits plan will be incorporated into the operating budget for approval on an annual basis. One-time entry to operating budget to account for increase in unfunded liability will most likely occurring in 2022. We will also incorporate into the operating budget. So our next steps here at this point, pending your approval, would be the outreach to the employees and retirees, coordinate with administrators for the program, which is WageWorks and ICMA-RC, and the actual implementation of the program in 2022. So at this point, I'll be happy to take any questions, but you see the recommended motion before you today.
Mr. Moody has a question.
Yeah, you mentioned outreach. I just wanted to understand better. What does this mean for the employees of Loudon Water in terms of, is there something in terms of signing up, or is this something that they automatically get access to? And are there, it sounds like the payment, the cost is on Loudon Water. Is there any partial cost that's attributed to the employees? Just trying to understand how the structure,
Yeah, so Mr. Moody, the defined benefit plan actually will be a contribution that we basically will continue to pay. The employee should. We always expect they're going to pay something. Unfortunately, even what we're providing is not going to cover the full amount of what this Medigap plan will be. So there will be a contribution based on that graded scale that we showed earlier in the presentation. They will not need to sign up. That would be for the folks that are currently on our plan. And we've put some provisions in there that state that they've got to be on our plan so many years prior to retirement as well, specific to those. I'm sorry.
Was it 5 or 15 years? I couldn't recall. I saw something.
That was for the defined contribution. So the defined contribution would be for those folks that have been not met the requirements that will fit into the defined benefit plan, which is 35 years of age and 15 years of VRS employment. Okay. So those folks would go into the defined benefit plan, whereas the defined contribution would be basically everybody else. So once they complete year 5, that newer group of folks that fall into defined contribution, they'll start receiving $3,000 in a retiree health savings plan until they eventually either retire with us or terminate. And if they terminate with us prior to 15 years, that amount that we've put in this RHSP will actually revert back to Loudon Water.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Don.
Sure. Thank you.
He has a question.
I think Sean he had his hand up before me.
Yes, Mr. Kelly, I think you're muted.
Yeah, thank you, Jewel. Thanks, Anjali. Tom, just a question. Thanks for your presentation. As I understand it, this is kind of like a flexible spending account in a way that a retiree can use these funds to purchase their own Medigap plan. It's not a plan that they're kind of meant to take by Cigna or anyone else. They can go anywhere they want to get their Medigap plan, and it can also be used for expenses that are not insurance premium related, medical expenses that can be covered that aren't covered by Medicare.
Yeah, Mr. Kelly, the plan that we proposed before you is actually having Cigna provide the Medigap plan. So it would be through Cigna, but we would have a third party that actually would receive those funds. The retired employee would then submit that through WageWorks, and WageWorks would then go ahead and provide payment to those particular bills. It is a health savings plan, so it would have to be part of a health expense. And Dave, you might be able to provide exactly what that might be.
It could be for insurance premiums, or it could be for other qualified medical expenses like dental or vision. So there are additional expenses beyond just insurance.
Okay, thank you.
It has to be medical.
Ms. Ursakar?
Yes, I had a few questions here because obviously I know quite a bit about employment benefits and I study that. So let's start with defined contribution. Now with defined contribution, employees get an opportunity through federal to opt in or opt out. But I just want to understand, what is that the option that Loudon Water is currently offering? Is it now, just to clarify that, is it automatic opt-in or is it automatic opt-out?
Yeah, so currently we don't have a defined contribution plan. The expectation is this would be something that everybody is enrolled in this plan to set aside a health savings plan.
Okay.
Once they hit the requirement of 5 years of employment.
Right.
And
Okay.
there would not be employee contributions going into this plan. It would be employer contributions only.
Okay. The other question I had was, and Carla, you please help us out here as our general manager. Were there surveys or sort of a sense of awareness provided to employees on this issue, or is it just strictly a management decision to further benefit the employees? I just wanted to understand if there was any feedback from the employees. Was there any efforts made towards that?
Well, no, not yet. I think, our outreach to them will be that this is sort of the gap in the benefit package that we currently offer. So I can't imagine that they wouldn't be anything but happy about it. I think, again, there's going to be criteria. You have to be participating in our health insurance plan to be eligible for this, but it certainly is a benefit that I can't imagine that anyone would want to opt out of. But to answer your question in general, no, there was not a survey of employees.
Thank you. And the reason why I posed that question was because I have a concern, and that is that I hope that employees would not come back and say one size does not fit all, because when we talk about employee benefits, when you talk about benefits, workplace benefits in general, most of the time we do have a pool of employees who say one size does not fit all, and it doesn't really cater to our needs. So I just want to make sure that we have that feedback, we have that outreach that enables the employees, to not come back to us and say one size fits all. That's just a concern I have.
Right, I understand. So I think the outreach will involve, again, those that are closer to retirement, 35 years and older with 15 years of service. It is really just an extension of what we already offer up to the age of 65. So for them, it's kind of going to be almost a seamless thing, right? They just stay on and we continue to make contributions toward their plan. For those that don't meet that criteria, to set up this retiree health savings account at $3,000 a year, knowing that if they vest in it 15 years, it's portable. They can take it with them. So they could take it to another employer and use it for future medical expenses. Again, I think it's a positive thing, and I do understand one size doesn't fit all. But I think in this case, everybody's health insurance needs are different, but by creating a health savings plan, they have the flexibility to use that for those eligible expenses as they see fit.
Thank you, Carla. I do not deny it's a wonderful effort from Land and Water to attract and retain employees, and it's an extended effort, and I applaud that to Land and Water for doing that. So yeah, these are just some of the concerns I had. I don't know about the other board members, but thank you for addressing them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All righty, well, can I have a motion to approve this, please?
I move the board approve the addition of the post-65 health insurance benefit to the existing other post-employee benefit plan and incorporate the corresponding costs into the operating budget on an annual basis. This is Sean. Bill.
This is Bill. I'll be a second.
Good.
Thank you.
Not any more discussion. Go ahead, Jewel.
Mr. Bonfield,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Ursakar.
An absolute yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
and Mr. Kovlis.
I can't wait till we get in person. This is going to be great. Yes, absolutely.
Unanimous.
First of all,
Thank you, sir.
Right. I want to also comment Brent had an extensive amount of questions that were very well presented, and of course Carla answered them great. So I want to thank both Brent and Carla, because this is not my expertise, believe me, but after everything, I'm very positive about this. Okay.
Thank you all very much.
Right, Mr. Rack, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I am asking today for the board to approve an updated and revised electronic meeting participation policy, which is included in your board docs materials. This is primarily resulting from changes to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act that became effective on July 1. That are resulting in some expansion of the ability to meet electronically. And so in order to take advantage of that change, we are required to update the previous electronic participation policy that the board adopted. The revised policy allows for electronic participation in 3 different circumstances. The first one, which is new to the to FOIA, is an express authorization for electronic meetings without a quorum physically present when there is a state of emergency that has been declared, and that would be essentially a ratification of the procedures that we've been following over the last year and a half or so. The second circumstance, which is also sort of a new benefit for under FOIA, is that it allows individual members of the board to participate through electronic means when they or their immediate family has a health situation, either an illness or a temporary or permanent disability, medical condition, where they need to not be able to attend the meeting in person. Now, this is something that can be exercised provided that a quorum of the rest of the board is assembled physically in the meeting room. So it does still depend on a quorum being physically present, but it has no limitations on the number of times that a board member can use this during a calendar year, so that if you or a member of your immediate family have a disability or a medical condition, you can participate electronically for however many meetings are necessary during the course of a calendar year. And then the third circumstance under which electronic participation is authorized is for when a member has what's referred to as a personal matter. And that could involve business travel. It could involve being away on vacation. It could be almost any particular personal reason why you can't attend a particular board meeting in person and would like to attend through electronic means. But there are a couple of qualifications to that. First, as I mentioned with regarding the medical condition, it still requires a quorum being physically present in the boardroom, so that has to be the case. There is also a limitation to the number of times during a calendar year that a board member may use this personal reason to attend electronically, and it's the greater of either 2 meetings a year or 25% of the meetings held, rounded up to the next whole number. So assuming that Loudon Water has 11 board meetings during the year, August is in recess, that means that a board member could attend electronically for personal matters a total of 3 times during the year for your full board meeting. The policy also makes clear that this sort of applies separately to your committee meetings, so that if you are a committee member and you need to attend a committee meeting electronically, and a quorum is present, you could do that up to 3 times during the year. So it's not counted against your use of this reason at the full board meetings. So that's an overview of the new policy, which tracks the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. So there's not a whole lot of leeway for us to make changes to it, but I just wanted to review those rules with you. And if there are no questions by the board, I would request that you approve the motion that's on your screen.
Mr. Koblis has a question.
Sorry, Mr. Koblis.
Yeah, Jonathan, what's a quorum for a committee and what's a quorum for a board meeting? 5 for the board meeting and how many for the committee?
5 for the board and a majority of the members of the committee. So for example, I can't remember, I think typically you have what, 4 or 5? 4 members on each committee. So a quorum would require 3 members physically present.
Wow, okay. So if we can't get 3 members to a committee meeting, then we have to cancel the meeting?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Allen?
Yeah, thanks. So what happens, I'm confused by this. I remember in the past, several years ago, we had a board member that was ill and missed, 6, 7, 8 board meetings. So I'm trying to reconcile this new policy. So if you're limited to a certain amount of remote access, if I understand it correctly, what if you are in bed and you can't even have remote access? Does that count as remote, or can you bypass the law by just saying I'm sick, I can't even be online? I mean,
right. So first of all, there are no limitations in this policy on absences from board meetings. So if a member has a disability or a medical condition which completely prevents his or her participation by any means, then that's fine. That's just recognize that you're absent from the meeting. If the member has a medical condition where they can participate electronically, they can phone in, come in through Zoom, then there are no limitations during a calendar year on the number of times that they can do that. The limitations on the number only apply to someone who wants to phone it in, so to speak, or participate electronically, and it's not for a medical reason, but it is for another personal matter, is their reason for participating electronically. Does that answer your question?
It does, but just to dovetail off of that, so in order to not be in that violation, you would be better off not dialing it electronically to somehow pass the minimum, right? Am I making sense? I don't know how to phrase it appropriately, but if you're up against the threshold of times and you're going to do it on the 4th time, you're better off just saying you're sick, right?
Well,
I'll let it go. We can talk offline.
Okay, I'd be happy to
all right.
Talk about any
somebody else
specific
ask a more sensible
circumstances.
question.
Let's see.
Mr. Moody?
Mr. Moody?
Well, actually, I think Mark, go ahead, Mark. I thought you had your hand up first. So.
Thanks. Dual bypasses me every once in a while, So, just to kind of clarify with Terry's question, I mean, this is just that is electronic participation, not having to do with missing a meeting. So you can only electronically participate in a meeting 3 times in a year. Now, 4th time, if you're out, nothing stops you from electronically participating. You're just not recognized as a board member participating. There is another rule that says that, and I don't know if we've ever actually used this rule, but if you miss a couple of meetings or 3, then you don't get paid. if I remember. Carla, you're gonna have to answer that. And I don't believe that really means if you're sick, but I think it's more for, we actually had a board member when I first started that just didn't show up. I mean, he was absent without leave. And so I think so I'll let Carla talk about that part. Go ahead, Carla.
Yeah, I think my recollection is that is no longer in the statement of policy. Jonathan, do you know off the top of your head? I think that was taken out.
I don't
Well,
remember.
I will double check as we're talking here, but
Yeah.
we'll,
That's correct, Carla.
it was taken out.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I want to make sure, I may not have been clear in my explanation. If a board member wants to participate electronically because they are sick or disabled, there are no restrictions on the number of times that you do that. So it's only if the only thing we're keeping track of in terms of the number are electronic participation due to a reason that is a personal matter, not that you are sick or disabled or taking care of a family member with those conditions.
And you have to have
That
a
answers my question.
written doctor's excuse, and Carla has to approve it.
Nope, you don't.
All right, Keith, go ahead.
Yeah, and you may have answered my question now. We were talking about the number for quorum for electronic, for the committee meetings and participation. And going back to Terry's instance, if someone was sick, does that change the number of quorum members that form a quorum? So if you have 4 and 1 is sick, then you're down to 3. That means that are we automatically changing the number that constitutes a quorum at that point to maybe 2 in a group of 4? How does that work?
No, the quorum is based on the number of members of the board or the number of members of the committee. It's not affected one way or another by how many people are participating or who's sick or whatever. And Virginia FOIA requires that unless you have a stated or a declared state of emergency, and these extraordinary provisions kick in that allow all members to participate electronically, that if you don't have that, then the only times that a board or a committee can meet is if a quorum of the members are physically present in the meeting room.
Okay. And even if there's a long-term ailment or something like that, there's no...
Doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
You still have to have a quorum of the body in order to have a meeting.
Understood. All right. Thank you.
There's a car.
Hi. So well, it's a great time to ask this question, extending on Mr. Moody's question here. So Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong. So in person should have a quorum of 3 members, correct? To have an active meeting, because if there's only, hypothetically, if there's only 2 members present, then we cancel the meeting, correct?
We're talking specifically about committee meetings, yes. And for a board meeting, it would be 5 members constitutes.
Okay, board meeting would be 5. And then I also had this burning question, but I always put it on the back burner. Mark, Mr. Kovalis had asked this question about, and Carla did mention that, no, we don't have that no longer in our policy anymore. And that is that if you're not there in attendance, if you miss three meetings, and this is all about the attendance, right? So if you miss 3 meetings, then you don't get paid. And Carla said, no, we don't have that in the policy. So what criteria or what constitutes whether board members get paid or not? I mean, like, how is that impacted? So I'm sure there's a policy for that, right?
I don't want to step on Jonathan's toes, but I think the idea is that the Board of Supervisors sets your annual compensation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't change that. Rather than sort of divvying that up, we divvy it up by 12, for paying purposes, but the board sets your annual salary, and that's what we pay you, regardless of the number of meetings that you show up to. Is that right, Jonathan? I mean, that's sort of
Carla,
why we took it out of there.
Carla, you're exactly right. The board, the Loudon Water Board, has really no say in your compensation. that is exclusively determined by the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors. So whatever they've adopted and the rules for those payments are what determines your compensation, and the Loudoun Water Board doesn't have any mechanism to change that.
So technically, a board member can be elected and then not come for 4 straight years and get paid for 4 straight years.
Exactly. Sorry.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you so
well,
much. Yeah, I was looking for
What-
a scenario to solidify my
So-
point. Thank you, Mark.
I'm stunned because I always made sure I wouldn't miss 2 meetings.
Right.
So I think that the Board of Supervisors, and Carla can correct me, but the Board of Supervisors receives an annual report on attendance of board members. And if it was apparent that a board member is not attending most of the meetings, then the Board of Supervisors could replace them. So there is a mechanism to correct that if there is abuse.
And I think within your statement of policy, there's also means by which the chair could start action, to possibly remove a member who isn't participating for a certain amount of time. And I think, of course, that would eventually go to the Board of Supervisors, but you have language in there that addresses that as well in your own statement of policy.
Who tattletales to the Board of Supervisors? Is that Carl's job?
No, you get the privilege of doing that. I
No.
What
I
if
don't know.
Mark is not there? I'm so sorry.
I think that's Jonathan's job.
We can do that too. Yeah.
What if Mark is not present? Mark, I'm so sorry. I have to bring this.
I don't remember if I've ever not been present.
No, I'm just playing with you.
I haven't
There.
scheduled my vacations around the meetings now. So we have this, did we already vote on this? I can't remember.
No, there's not been a motion.
All right, can somebody make a motion?
I'll make the motion. This is Marty.
And a
This is
second?
Sean, I'll second.
Any other questions? Okay, Jewel?
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sersakar,
Yes.
Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
and Mr. Koblis.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. No new business, informational items. I've got to get this right by now. Stefan, is that right?
Got it.
Yes. Golly. All right, Stefan, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So over the past year, there have been multiple touch points with the board regarding the Reservoir Park project, and most of those have been with the Water Resources Committee. As such, we want to provide an opportunity to address the full board with a quick summary of those touch points and some upcoming milestones as the board heads in their summer recess. So the slide before you just depicts a high-level project timeline across the top, as well as a rendering of Reservoir Park in the background. So looking at some of these touch points in the past. Good. So back in the fall of 2020, we had several meetings with the Water Resource Committee to address some certain design decisions, such as the siding, columns, stone water table, roof material, etc. Buildings, as well as some other key design decisions, such as whether or not to have a bridge at the southern end. And feedback from that committee was vital in helping us move towards forward in design. So back in March of this year, we received the 50% construction documents, and that was presented to the Water Resource Committee as well. So that was just a quick look back. Looking ahead at some key milestones. Actually, this month we are looking to resubmit the site plan to Loudoun County for a third time, and we're actually expecting approval of the submission. So that's a pretty big milestone for us. And then that will lead us into receiving the 100% construction documents in September. And then from there, we're hoping to bid the project out in October of this year, and have a couple months for the bid and award phase, and look to start construction early spring of next year. And then, if everything holds true, we'll be looking to have construction wrap up in late summer 2023. So that's pretty quick and short and to the point. And I'd like to answer any questions you guys may have on this project. I see one, Mr. Byers.
Stefan, thank you. Could you just briefly, without going into painful detail, it's going to take 3 site plan submissions to get approval. Can you give a summary of what the problem was the first 2 times?
So, this isn't too atypical of a site plan process for a project of this size. Just going through the county comments, each county department has the opportunity to review and provide comments. There were just some things to work through with the county. We've had meetings with them and just making sure we're meeting all their requirements. So, again, for a project of this magnitude, I would say 3 isn't too bad. And that's actually what we were planning on when we're laying out the schedule, when we scoped the task order. So
I guess it was my fervent hope that the county would look at a free park that they pay no money for and maybe make it a little easier on those of us submitting site plans. But I guess that is an unlikely occurrence. So thank you.
Yeah, I was optimistic as well, but
I'm trying not to laugh hysterically at that comment, Bill.
I know, I'm sorry.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have one. Sorry, I'm not good with the raise hand thing. There we go. I was like, where's that thing? Yeah, what did, so we've got, we don't have the 100% construction numbers yet, but we've got 50%. Did I understand it correctly or no?
yes, we received those back in March.
Okay. And what did we go over? I think we did go over those numbers, didn't we? But that's right. Yeah. Okay. All right. It's all coming back to me. The fog is thick. Okay. So we've got the 50% from March. We looked at those. I remember that now. And then we'll get the 100% in September. And so then we'll have more clarity about what all this stuff's costing.
Correct. Yes.
Perfect. All right. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks, Stefan.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You can tell it's summer right now, man. This is going quick. Probably shouldn't blow this right now. Okay. All right. Brian, does anybody have any questions for? Oh, I'm sorry. Angeline's got her hand up.
I just want to. I don't have a question, but I really want to take an opportunity to thank Stefan for offering this presentation. I think I, on the board, now will do more of that. You expect more from me in terms of thanking our presenters and team members who put in their hard work towards, providing this presentation to us on the board. So thank you, Stefan, to you and to your team. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to that 100% meeting. All right, Brian, does anybody have any questions on the financial summary report for May, I guess? All right, moving on. Alton, anything significant on the Water Resources Management monthly report to comment on?
No, Mr. Chairman, nothing significant, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Can you please go back for a second, Alton?
Absolutely.
The groundwater caution, why is there a caution for groundwater?
Sure. So we've attempted to align our advisory status here in the front page for you guys to align with the Virginia Drought Monitoring Task Force, which I believe appears on the second page of the report. And They're very conservative with their alert status for groundwater, and they typically base that on a limited pool of relatively shallow groundwater monitoring wells that the USGS has tracking on. So we do align our status with theirs to a certain degree, but you'll find notes later in the report that reflect, our source water wells are very much deeper, and we trend seasonal normal levels in those wells, and we have been this summer.
So when there's seasonal normal levels, but what happens if the seasonal normal levels go atypical? They're not normal. So what measures do we have in place for that?
Well, we certainly have a portfolio of multiple wells within our community systems that we can draw from. And when I say seasonally normal, I mean our groundwater recharge is exceptional throughout the community systems, and we are underway with looking at impact areas around each community system and studying the recharge, caution areas, so to speak, studying those closer. We have work underway to do that right now. But, all in all, for a long, long time, we've been trending, very well in terms of our groundwater supply.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to echo what Alton was just saying when he started that discussion on how the state looked at this groundwater status. And that is the fact that they really only have 2 wells in our region that they monitor. And one of those in particular has always been problematic and always shows low, right off the bat as soon as conditions turn it all dry. So it's something for us to maybe look at how we reflect status. We did want this to align with the state program. Because there are some real triggers built into what may happen if this advisory status goes too negative. But the reality is, as Alton was saying, we monitor our own wells very closely, and our wells are as you mentioned, much deeper and stronger, and we have redundancy within each of those systems on top of that. So we're in good shape there.
Okay.
Thank you, Rodney. Just one more question here. So just to make a mental note of that, if this comes up in the future. So we have two wells right now, right?
Those are the 2 wells that the state uses as their metrics for this. Those are not our wells; they're USGS wells that are monitored by USGS, but the information is available to the state, and so that's really all they have to hang their hat on. They just look at those as their guideposts to track status of groundwater levels. It's something we may want to talk to DEQ about as to whether maybe they want to incorporate some of our data to give them a better sense of what's really going on within our region, because they just are not indicative as we have seen as to what's really happening in our region with groundwater. So it's a little bit of a gap in kind of the state's program, I think.
Yeah,
and so when we monitor our wells, when Alton was saying that we monitor our own wells, is that what he was saying to us? Like with these 2 wells that are they're sort of the property of the state, right? USD. But is that the well I'm sort of now I'm a little confused.
Okay. Well, let me try to help them, because these 2 wells are not owned or operated by Loudon Water. These are 2 wells that are monitored by actually it's USGS, correct?
USGS, right?
Yeah, and so this was readily available data that the state could grab a hold of to use in its program that they had established several years back to monitor the overall condition of things within the state. So it's their drought monitoring program that they stood up several years ago. So they have limited data sources for that, and so that's just an inherent weakness because of the limited data set in their program. Go ahead, Alton. I'm sorry.
In fact, if we could, can someone switch to the second page of the report? I think it'll become a lot clearer. I'm sorry, the next page. These are the 2 wells we're speaking of. So when when you see below here, this is DEQ's Virginia Drought Monitoring Task Force status map, and you can see the Northern Virginia region in Loudoun County toward the top. The red square in the upper right-hand corner is reflecting an emergency status for groundwater, but they base these status indicators on just the 2 wells you see before you on this page, which are 2 USGS wells nearby. One is in the Short Hill mountain area near Lovettsville, and the other's down near the border with Prince William County. These are shallow wells. You can see the one is 11 feet to groundwater, and the other one's about 60 feet. So these are the 2 that provide the status, for DEQ's report, which is very conservative. We have multiple groundwater wells throughout the community systems that are hundreds of feet deep. And we also have online monitors within those wells that report back to SCADA the level and the recharge. And so we look at that data as well to understand our own status with respect to groundwater supply. And those recharge normally, and we don't see any downward trend generally in those. And so does that help make it a little clearer?
There's a red for the first one, there are 2 maps on top in terms of the site, and one of them has this red dot, and that indicates an emergency. What is that about?
Again, these are just trends and statistical ranges for the trending that USGS has been doing for quite some time. And so based on the statistical data, it's in a lower percentile range currently for groundwater. But again, this is a very shallow well that's highly influenced by surface water. As you can see, it was about 10 to 11 feet to groundwater, 10 to 15 feet there. So really, it's just what's going on in this one data point. But again, I think the main takeaway is that this isn't necessarily reflective of the aquifers, and our own monitoring of our wells that we own and operate are really what we're focused on. And so really that indicator on the first page, again, to Roddy's point, perhaps we can take a closer look at how we reflect that and how we align that with the DEQ status map. But we were just trying to be a bit conservative to not, thinking you guys look at that first page there. See, Mr. Koblis, you have your hand up as well.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that this is ridiculous to even look at these 2 wells. I mean, this is 11-foot deep well. I mean, it seems like there should be. I mean, we must have our own on there. It's like somebody yelling shark when they're looking at a dolphin. So why do we even? Is this something that DEQ makes us put on here?
Well, no. Let me just to clarify. The reason we track this is important information because DEQ then could, and through their drought monitoring program, could put our region into a drought status. And so we have to keep track of what DEQ does. They are our regulatory authority, and so it's important for us to know what they're thinking. But I think what I am, my belief is that we need to probably talk to DEQ about this information and see if it can be looked at a little. Maybe we can offer to work with them on providing some more information that would help their program, strengthen their program.
Nobody has an 11-foot well anymore.
Right. And so, we've noted this for some time. And I think in the report, Alton goes on to reflect that, our wells are doing fine. This is not a problem for us. This is just the state program in monitoring for drought. And they use all of these different indicators to gauge what are the current conditions. Now, to their credit, they don't just use one number. They don't just use this groundwater number to determine that they're going to issue a drought warning or any kind of drought advisory for our region. But they do. This is one of the 4 pieces of the puzzle for them to look at. Stream flows, groundwater conditions, and some other factors that go into their status that they ultimately put out for all the different regions within the state.
Are we in a partnership?
I think Sean has his hand up.
Sean, I apologize. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Roddy or Alta, how much is this influenced by building? I I know I live outside Lovettsville, and I know there's a lot of concern about the number of houses going in and groundwater and so forth. Is that monitoring that, or is it just strictly lack of rainfall?
I think this is just more reflective of precipitation, to be honest, in terms of these couple of indicator wells. But that's why I was mentioning earlier, we are being proactive about, understanding the area of influence of our aquifers with our community system wells. To your exact point, understanding other wells drawing from the same aquifer and the quantity of wells in the vicinity and so forth. So we are actively working on that with our community system staff under Kinsey.
Yeah. I will add that there's some really good work going on right now to that end, in monitoring the influence of other wells on our groundwater supplies, wells that are being proposed or implemented out in the Lucas area, for instance. And we can bring more of that information back to the Water Resources Committee. I think that would be a good topic of discussion at that committee meeting.
Yes, in fact, I think water supply is one of the items on the agenda for the next meeting in September.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Ursakar?
Okay, so I'm gonna hold off. I'm gonna write this question down, and I'm gonna hold off. And I hope that this question about our discussion on well and water supply, I hope it comes back into the water supply agenda, because I do have further questions. But I'm gonna pause my questions for later time. Thank you.
Okay. With that, thanks, Alton. Sorry. Any questions for Hui on the water and sewer agreements? Okay, I don't think we have any closed meeting items. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Correct.
Okay, so we don't have a meeting in August. So if I could, before we adjourn, Jewel, could you stay on for a minute? I want to test my speaker. Something's wrong. So
sure.
If you could stay on. Anyway, could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
So moved. This is Sean. Have a good summer.
And a second?
This is Keith, second. Have a good summer.
All right. Any more discussion? Go ahead, Joel.
Mr. Bonfils?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Ursakar?
Yes.
Mr. Sultan?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
And Mr. Koblis?
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you, sir. Adjourned at 4:52.